Okay, so now I'm ready to kind of dive in, do a little bit of EQing and stuff like that. I want to clean things up as much as possible, so I'm going to go to the overheads and just hear where they sound. Sounds like I did a high pass filter on there, but I'm going to just fire up the Fab Filter Pro Q3, switch that to a low cut. Ah, there's where the ride symbol's coming in. Let's EQ that a little bit. It sounds a little bit garbagey. Much better, much more usable. One thing I want to talk about real quick is panning. You can do it in drummer's perspective or audience perspective. And I personally choose to do drummer's perspective because, air drumming. And people are used to hearing fills from left to right. In the US, we're used to things going from left to right. So that's why I kind of like drummer's perspective. And it's not the most common, but it's not uncommon either. So I'd worry about where I'd place my hat and how my overheads were panned as well. I'd make sure the ride on the overheads is to the right, the hat's to the left, crashes are kind of right here. Um, let's do a little bit of EQ on that kick drum. Get a little more oomph. I mean, it's already some processing on that kick drum as it is, as you can see. All right, seems good enough. Now when I go to the snare and I EQ it, if I want more woody body to a snare drum, usually 250 hertz is a good way to go, good place to go. And I do like doing a high pass filter on almost everything that's not the kick or bass. Let's add some woodiness to it, about 250 hertz ish. A little bit of sizzle to it. Now, I don't know if it'll sound good if I gate that. Reason being is that there's so much cymbal bleeding in there that it might sound weird with a cymbal if I'm gating that snare drum, but I'll give it a shot. One of the best, most accurate gates I found on drums lately is the, if I go to the Slate Digital virtual mix rack. And there's a device in there that's just perfect for drum gating. They added it fairly recently. Let's just wait for this beach ball to stop spinning. Maybe hit save. Anytime you see the beach ball, hit save, next chance you get. That's rule number one of mixing or anything with a digital audio workstation. So I'm going to go to dynamics, and there's this purple one, this gate drums. I'm going to drag that on there, and just by default, hear how it sounds. That's pretty easy. It's pretty much a set it and forget it sort of thing. I'm not going to really mess with the attack or release. Just the threshold, and I'm just going to let it go with that and just hear how it sounds on the track. Let's try to copy the same thing down to the snare bottom. Sounds good to me. So I'll play a little bit with and without the gate on there. So here's bring the overheads down a little bit and the ride down a little bit. So you can hear it's a lot cleaner with that gate in there. So you don't have to worry about the kick drum gating because that's the drum triggers automatically doing that. The snare top and bottom is being gated. So now with everything in there, I have a nice clean snare top, snare bottom. Toms I don't need to worry about. Now I'm going to add a little bit of compression to that snare. My personal favorite compressor for snare drums is the Arouser. It's the same thing. It's basically a new version of the Distressor by the same company. So I can... that is too much. Let's do a 2-to-1. Sure. Yeah, sounds pretty good. I'm just trying to get a good balance, so kind of that same setting down there on the snare bottom, but before I do that, I'm going to EQ it a little bit. Whoops, did not want that. And turn the compressor back on it on that snare bottom. It'd be a little bit grabbier on a snare bottom, so I'm going to go faster. All right, let's EQ the toms. Nice thing, this is always a pain in the ass the analog days, is I can just loop the toms, because before, if toms only came in like for 5 seconds, you'd have to loop the tape machine. That was very, very time consuming. But no more. So I want to accentuate the attack on there. and sort of that low fundamental in there, and take out everything in between, or minimize everything in between. Bit of a high pass filter on there. So that sounds great on there. You go to the second tom. Sort of loop the same section. And the same thing on the third tom. EQ. All right, so here are all those toms together, working with the kick and snare. So now I'm going to ease the little fade there. I'm going to ease the overheads in. I'll start all the way down and just kind of bring them up to where it sounds about right. All right, so that's some EQing in there. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that ride on so it's just only on in these sections. So I'm going to hit the B key to break it at the end of the section. And hit the B key there to break it. And I can mute before and after. If I double click and I hit Command M, that'll mute that region. I'm going to do the same thing here in this section. Break that there. Break that there. And mute in between. Mute. And a mute. That way I'm not, cluttering up the sonic, landscape. With this many tracks, the more stuff you can take out, the more you can hear the stuff that needs to be heard. So think of subtractly. What can I take out with EQ, with tracks, that kind of thing. So the next video I'm going to show adding reverb and stuff to the vocals.